Today we are discussing the High Priestess.
Yes, one of our favorite cards. For those of you watching, Nicole and I love this card. We have talked about it many times before and are excited to now bring you all into the conversation. So, I don't know, just looking at it, and I'll share mine again. I'm using the Modern Witch Tarot deck. So we have a slightly different illustration here, but you'll see that there's a moon there, and I think this card always speaks to that internal like highest self, the version of you that is guided by the moon, right? Your intuition, taking in all that, the moon energy, the universe is telling you, and you might not see it, but you believe it. You know it's there and you're grounded in a knowing. And yeah, there's so much more I can say about it, but before I like ramble on for 20 minutes, I want to give Nicole some space to jump in.
Fine. Yeah, I feel like the High Priestess is our higher self, right? We can
Mm,
see our higher self. It's, we just it's this knowing, this inner knowing, this inner
mm,
voice, right? And the moon, we'll cover the moon when we get to the moon. Samya and I had some experiences with the moon. Um,
Yeah.
but the moon is so influential, I feel like, with the High Priestess. And I know on my deck, I have that moon there at the bottom, right? At,
Yeah.
at her feet. But
Yeah.
yeah, and so in this illustration, I feel like those two pillars kind of represent that duality within us.
hmm
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that feminine and masculine energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I love that you said that. I actually don't even re think I'd ever thought of that, but there is that duality, and there's something that feels so whole about that, right? Like that sort of feminine, masculine coming together. There's just such a wholeness to it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a very I think for those of you watching, like, and maybe we were using the term higher self, and maybe not everyone knows what that means. And so, really, at least I see it as like, the sort of version of yourself that's like operating at its like highest good or like best self. And we're always listening to that to proceed in a way that proceed in our life or navigate our life in a way that is really congruent with our hearts and souls desires.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if I captured that fully, but that's at least how I see it.
Yeah,
The- Mhm.
absolutely. And it's interesting because on mine, she has like a cross over her chest.
Mhm.
Is,
Mhm.
is your illustration?
No, it's just
Okay.
mhm.
Yeah, so crosses oftentimes mean like something spiritual, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so that connection to the divine, to
Yeah.
source.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right? And what's
Mhm.
interesting is right over her heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
feel like, our heart and the purity of it is what keeps us connected to source,
Mhm.
right? To our higher self,
Mhm.
right? To
Mhm.
be able to hear
Yeah.
everyone, we're all connected, right? But it's again about that intention. And so
Right.
what messages are you receiving? Because you can receive some distorted messages, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Especially
Yeah.
that moon energy that we'll get into later.
Yeah.
Because the moon, you can't, it's very influential,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
didn't even know this until recently, but I believe the moon shifts like every 2 days.
Mhm. Yeah.
So just imagine that, like
Yeah.
constantly going
Constant. Mhm.
this constant change or this constant influx of messages, you know what I mean? Or information or intuition and emotion. So it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, what you were saying about like being connected to source, being connected to the divine, right? Like there sometimes, right? I think what the high priestess tells us is that you might feel something or really sense something, believe in it deeply, right? And you really might not have a physical kind of confirmation of it, but you hold true to it because that's your connection to the divine, right? So, sort of, I almost see it as like no one can tell you this is wrong because you feel it and you believe it. And trusting in that is important. Of course, the moon can, amplify, distort things, like we said, but um, this is there's a calm knowing in this. It's not a frantic knowing. It's a calm knowing, and it's
Inner
a
peace is it's
yeah. Mhm.
very peaceful inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting, is like for me, I look at this, it's like she almost has like this orb on,
Yeah. Yeah. Even on mine.
right? And it's just like right on the crown chakra, right? And
Hmm.
that's where we receive our intuitive downloads and spiritual transmissions through our crown, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
And again, that white is like white and light blue for me. So again, that's
Hmm.
that purity to be able to receive that clarity.
Hmm. Yeah.
I know for me, again, once I started my spiritual awakening in 2021, I mean, I've always been intuitive. Um,
Hmm.
I'm an empath. I'm a Heyoka empath, by the way,
Hmm.
is one that mirrors truth back to the other person. That's what a Heyoka empath is. And so anyway, I've always been intuitive, or I've always had a knowing, right? And as I've embarked upon my spiritual journey, I feel like my strongest gifts is like claircognizance, right? Just knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I feel like over these last 2 years, my high priestess has really strengthened and come online and taken, front and center. And I love that because everything that I do, I tap into my intuition first.
Hmm. Yeah.
Rarely lead with like just logic anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like very tapped into the moon energy, the cycles, my intuition, my higher self. And then
Hmm.
I'll, maybe validate or confirm, like making sure it's logical, common sense, but I lead with my intuition now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that because I think when we're socialized in this world, we're taught to think logic first. Think about what's in front of you rather than what's in your heart, what's in your mind, your soul. And
Mhm.
it almost feels like a reclamation to say that I'm gonna lead with my intuition first because I've in some ways been taught not to do that.
Right.
And um, especially in a world that's so driven by capitalism and that physical labor, that money, like it that's what we're told, that's what we're taught, and it's so empowering to take that back and say this is how I lead with it. And I want to hear, Nicole, like for you when you switched to leaning into your high priestess, your intuition, how did that shift things for you?
It shifted in a big way. I feel like I was just out of alignment when I was trying to follow maybe what I've been taught all my life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
once I started following my heart, right? That's how the heart of a goddess was born, following my heart, following my intuition. Slowly but surely, I started to come into alignment.
Mhm. Mhm.
Alignment is the goal for all of
Yeah.
us. Because
Yes.
when you are in alignment, you are living in your truth. You are doing what you are called to do. You are becoming or have become the woman or man that you're meant to be in this lifetime. So alignment is the goal.
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like the fool's journey illustrates that, right?
Mhm.
From the
Mhm.
fool to the world, it takes you through, but we'll get into that later. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so for me to answer your question, it has brought me into alignment.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah. For me, I think it's been a reminder that like I think in the last year especially I have way more leaned into my high priestess energy, and you've seen that of course, but for those of you watching, I think that in the last year has been probably the biggest influence in my life of regaining trust in myself. Just having gone through a lot of transition in my life in the last year, trying to figure out like what is really me. And that was like my return to my high priestess, my highest self. And it actually reminded me that she's been there all along. Like
Yeah.
all along when I was a kid, I always had like sort of gut feelings or intuitions or, just sort of insight of like, oh, I'm noticing the shift in a person and I'm like, I can kind of pick up like what's happening, but was taught to, oh, that's anxiety, that's not your intuition. And so over the last year or two, I would say, is I've really had to realize like what's my anxiety versus my intuition, right? And the anxiety is sort of like can be very like loud and sometimes it's saying the same thing as intuition, but it's a lot louder.
Yeah.
Whereas the intuition is grounded, even if they're both saying the same thing. So
Mhm.
I think that and you know, growing up as like I think in an Indian family, like Indian culture, like my mom always talked about intuition. And so I trusted it for her, but it was just I grew up differently because I grew up here in America. So it was just hard to reconcile those things. So I think in some ways it feels a return to my cultural roots too.
Yes, I could see that for sure. Yeah, and I feel like for me growing up, I wasn't in a like household that it's weird. Let me say this. Okay, because actually my mother read tarot. So I
Mm.
was a little girl, I would see tarot decks, I would see
Yeah.
astrology books and all of
Yeah.
those things around the house, but I was very little. And so it's not like my mom taught me tarot, but she was reading and learning tarot while she was carrying me.
Wow.
Uh, and again, when I was growing up, I would see them around the house, but it's like me and my mom, we never did tarot readings together, or she never, formally sat down with me, but I just observed and saw that. And I think combined with my naturally being an empath, right? Those were the seeds that were just being planted, and I didn't even know it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know?
That's so beautiful that like she was doing that while carrying you and now it's such a big part of who you are.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. She didn't like read publicly. I just remember her reading for like maybe family and friends.
Mm.
My mom was super dope. She could
Yeah.
like astral project. She would travel on her. Yeah, like she was pretty amazing. So she definitely was a huge inspiration for
Yeah.
all of this. And like I said, I feel like she planted the seeds. And actually my father was spiritual too. So they were both spiritual. So we lived in a spiritual household, but it was almost just like the high priestess. Things just weren't said. You know what I mean? They were just felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it took me all the way into my adult life to really
Mm.
tap into my intuition and my high priestess energy and just trust it. I think for
Yeah.
me, it was about trust.
Yeah.
'Cause I was
Yeah.
getting different information, but I'm just like, it's not, I can't qualify it, right? It's not logical. It's not real. Like I don't see it. So it must not be true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which yeah, that it trust again, that trust is so hard when we've been told like
Right.
be logical, be practical, right? Be mindful, like in these ways that are sort of again based in what we see in the 3D and what we see in front of us, which is like, I'm thinking back to even like 2020, right? When COVID happened and there were people who had prior to that said, "Hey, something big is coming, like this whole world is going to be changed after 20." And a lot of people were saying that and you can go back and find them, but they didn't have proof. They were operating on that internal knowledge, the guidance they were getting from the universe and
Right.
so there's something really powerful to going with that intuition over logic because logic can say a lot of things, but it can totally prove you wrong later on. So,
Absolutely. I mean, could you imagine a world like if we all just trusted our intuition and
Right.
operated from our intuition,
Hmm.
like we would just have so much more love, so much more peace, clarity, you know.
Yeah. 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 And
But
connection.
yeah, connection. And that's the thing. People are so disconnected from their higher self, from their intuition, from
Yeah.
their truth. And that's why the world is what it is now, right? The chaos, confusion, the anger, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
Capitalism, like you
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so I guess when we get the High Priestess in a reading, there's obviously that it is a deeply internal card, but
Mhm.
it's sort of a resistance against all these things we've been taught to believe. And it has existed, like the highest self, it predates all of us. The consciousness that it predates all of us. So,
Yes.
uh, something beautiful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you ever get the High Priestess in your reading, definitely lean into that. You know, it's encouraging you to tap into your inner wisdom, right? Because all answers are within, never without.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I just feel like a lot of people are always looking for external validation,
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
external permission.
Yeah.
And that was another lesson for me, I think, with the High Priestess. It taught me to give myself permission to do,
Mm-hmm.
go, to believe,
Yeah.
to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, Permission to trust myself and to trust in my knowing, the claircognizance, like you mentioned. Like
Mhm.
I can believe that. I can hold it and I don't have to dismiss it.
Absolutely. And for me, over time, it was proven to me that my intuition was correct. And I think that
Mhm.
happens, right? Over time,
Yeah.
as your intuition con continuously is like, okay, that was correct. That was correct. It
Mhm.
builds that trust, that
Yeah.
self-trust.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like, for me, I have a saying, people lie, but energy doesn't,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And so the energy always tells the true story.
Yes. Yeah.
And the high priestess and your higher self, they're
Hmm.
on that frequency, they're on that vibration.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you are feeling something and you're like, I feel this and I don't know why, and there's no proof for it, but I feel it, trust that,
Yeah.
right? Trust it. And I think there have been enough cases of plenty of people saying, I thought this thing was going to happen, but people told me no, and then it did. So just trust it, right? What's the worst that could happen? Trust it. See where it takes you. A lot good could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing about life, our higher self source puts different visions and ideas in all of us, all of
Yeah.
our parts. So just because someone else can't see it doesn't mean or make it
Yeah.
untrue.
Right. Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so absolutely tap into your higher self and your inner wisdom because the answers are within.
Mhm.